Hello. So I'm from the south side of Chicago, so I'm super black girl. Okay. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Casey, YMCA, for inviting me to this talk. I think everyone can hear me. I'm so excited to be back on campus. I recently defended in May, so it's a little nostalgic to be here. I am going to get started. I have magazines and stuff. I'm pass them around. Let's see. All right. So I began organizing with and for black girls here in Champaign at Franklin Middle School and Urbana Middle School with my homegirls and So Hot. And y'all already know how we do. Okay, and so I moved on to Chicago and I began my black girl organizing at a school. And I am here to talk about MELT, a place, space, method and methodology, magazine, a black girl production. MELT is where truth is light, not shade. A collective of nerds, bad girls, players, pimps, superheroes, black girls. Before I speak MELT onto you, I just have one recommendation. Many of you will be looking for academic jargon, my connection to black feminism, answers. How do we work with black youth? However, in this space, I invite you to just be yourself. The self when you are painting, journaling, twerking. The self that feels gratitude when you finally met a friend in a complicated world. Because this is what MELT is about. So MELT is a black girl-centered magazine and a creative platform. We do have boys a part of MELT as well, but it is black girl-centered. And it's developed on the premise that when we do collective work, we melt together. So the girls named the magazine MELT. Okay, we started at a school and we were going back and forth about a name. And one girl from the back of the room who was really quiet, she comes to the front and she says, MELT, because we're different and we just come together. And so that's how the magazine got its name. And in MELT, teens gain experience in graphic design, content, editing, journalism, and photography, and then we produce an annual printed and digital magazine. So our beginning, so I began at a school, and I realized that there was a difference. Usually when we have youth programs, we try to sometimes, for lack of better words, like clump our youth together, and we don't recognize that there's differences even among our black youth, right? There's, the black experience is not monolithic. And so I started meeting with girls at a library. Some of my girls who would identify as nerds who are interested in anime and cosplay. And so we met at a library on the University of Chicago campus. And that is when I realized, we have to do something great and powerful that recognizes my girls who identify as round the way, my girls who identify as queer, but they love their separate spaces, but they still want to feel together, okay? And so I was working with African American teen girls in an after-school program, and one day I asked them, what does it mean to be a black girl? And their responses illuminates the consequences of racial and gender stereotypes that plague discourses about black girls, and the consequence of black girls not having creative control and autonomy over their own ideas, images, and representations. Their responses was an opportunity to further explore how they make meaning of self, community, and society in order to demonstrate how race, gender, and age is shaped, informed, and becoming. And as a once black girl, black woman, black girl advocate, I was compelled to dig deeper into what would critically engage them in identity work, where they could have ownership and authorship of their own ideas, stories, and theories. And I wanted to do it in a creative way that was impactful. So from the first issue, it is with the two girls on the front of the cover, if you have your hands on the magazine. So the first issue, I realized that working with black girls requires a pedagogical approach that privileges the ways in which they make meaning, okay? And that's hard as an adult because we want to discipline black girls. We want to tell them how to move their bodies, how not to move their bodies, how to wear their hair, what's appropriate fashion, how you should speak. So we come in with our own ideas of what it takes to make it in the real world, okay? And it's our efforts, right? We have good intentions to say, this is what, you know, this is how you're going to assimilate, or this is how you're going to get a good job. And that has been our traditional style of pedagogy, discipline. That is what it is, okay? And so the utility of Melt magazine as pedagogy works towards the latter by developing a process where girls have ownership and authorship and have the capacity to be decision makers. And so I drew from critical pedagogy, culturally relevant pedagogy, and hip-hop feminist pedagogy because Melt is a political and practical activity that takes black girls' symbolism, their language, discourses, everything black girl. And black girls is not this urban subject that has a very downtrodden story, okay? And so we recognize their racial connection in our shared histories, but in Melt, we also recognize that they have different backgrounds and experiences and wants and desires. Some girls may not even identify as a black girl, but they still deserve to be in black girl spaces. Creativity is at the crux of Melt, okay? So creativity is tough, man. Because I'll come in with my agenda and they just shut that shit down. Like, we're not doing that today. That's part of the creative process. Okay, the creative process is having tough conversations about, I don't know, sex. We talk about sex in Melt. Having complicated conversations about relationships, you know, with their partners, teachers, parents. Sometimes we come to Melt and it is absolutely crazy. Someone will probably think I was the worst teacher, practitioner ever because they are like, we're literally just doing what we want to do. Running around, not listening, talking loud, cursing a lot. But that was part of our process to actually get to our stories, is allowing time for them to just be free. And that looks very differently for different people, okay? So creativity is at the crux of Melt magazine production and a form of critical re-envisioning for black girls that moves them to be imaginative, okay? Generate ideas and make meaning on their own terms, which is difficult because I don't want to hear everything that goes on in their personal lives sometimes, but that's also my form of discipline because I have this idea, right, sometimes of that respectability politics of what should come out of their mouth. But creating a space where they're comfortable enough to share that with me is important. Okay, so creativity promotes alternative approaches for research studies that continues to speak on behalf of black girls. The creative in Melt borrows from Dr. Ruth Nicole Brown, creative potential as a method, analysis, and practice that drives the inventiveness in Black girlhood through various artistic genres, means, and modes. Okay, so we have hip hop, we have heavy metal that surprised the hell out of me, must admit. We have anime, cosplay. So we have various genres. We have performance, poets, rappers, and then we have our quiet girls, okay? And in this case, through Melt magazine, Melt follows a pathway, as I mentioned before, of hip hop, where the creative are acts of liberation and expression, acts of negotiation, bringing rec, generating space and infinite possibilities for girls to take ownership and authorship. Particularly within social structures that was meant to break them down psychologically, politically, and economically. So after the first issue, we had an art exhibit entitled Meltdown. And I said, you guys can create an art exhibit and you can say and do exactly what you want to do. And that surprised them. They said, what? Anything? Like, we can curse? They always ask me, can they curse? Because cursing for Black girls is a form of liberation. So somebody quote me on that and write about that. We could curse? I said, absolutely. I said, invite your parents too. And so our process with that, we took the girls, I work with the creative professional, which are my friends, and they took pictures, and then they write the text on the photo. And we went to the thrift store and we bought picture frames, and we spray painted them, and we put the pictures. I couldn't find the photos, but if you want them, I could share them with you. But we did like a flaming hot section where I bought so many flaming hot bags, and they created amazing work out of flaming hot bags. Like, I know it's not healthy. I know Cheetos is like killing us, but you gotta have Cheetos when you work in a Black youth space. I love Cheetos. And so I let them design with the flaming hot bags, but I couldn't find those photos, sorry. And then some girl took her Jordans and she put glitter on it and wrote a message on it, and so we had that as an exhibit. But here is some of the archives I was able to find. And this is Real, who says, I'm dark as fuck, but I never cared what anyone said. And this is Maya. Maya identified as a silent killer. And she says, open your eyes, I'm a blessing in disguise. So the girls took the pictures of each other. They also did the color correction. They chose their frame, and we spray painted. We have Latrice, who would identify as a pimp and a round-away girl. Don't be mad because I don't give a fuck. Be mad because when I did, you were blind to see it. So after the art exhibit, we started the magazine production process, and that is when we started working on the magazine with the girl with the bubble gum. Yes, you have that in your head. Yep. So it was myself, 3 other Black women, 33 teens. I don't know how I did it. Worked for 3 to 4 hours twice a week from October 2017 to May 2018. We had no money. I just want to make that clear. We had no money. My friends, I loved them so. They labored with love with me. We stayed up. But I was used to this process because I come from Soul High, and that's just what we do. So, but bringing my friends along into this process, this wasn't easy. A lot of us were very nervous about the material that we would put out or how we were displaying the girls, if we were doing it in the right way. we just continued. So the girls would work in departments, so they chose their departments: graphic design, photography, editing, and content. And I had a creative professional in each of those departments that were teaching them those skills. And then the culminating project was the magazine. Okay. In the journaling department, I came with my semi-structured curriculum, just prompts to help the girls with their writing process. During our writing process, I heard girls say, "I don't like writing about myself." We can't use I when writing. Can I write about my transgender neighbor? We can actually write anything. We can actually write anything we want, anything. And I want to write about Asia's colonization in Africa, which I was like, what the hell? You are a sophomore in high school. I didn't even know what colonization was till grad school. So, I'm sorry, let me take that back. Undergrad, I went here for undergrad, I'll give you a vice credit. Gender and women's studies major, so that's when I learned about colonization. But I was surprised, like, what? They talked about being gender fluid, so introducing me to concepts I was not familiar with as a teenager. But here are just some of quotes that just popped out that I remember that sat with me. But just to give you an idea of what we discussed, what was said when we were writing. And the writing process is very simple. I would just say write, like seriously. One, I would have to get them to calm down, because I give them about 15, 20 minutes to gossip about the day, because gossiping is also a way for us to express how we feel. So I'll give them about 15, 20 minutes, and then I will put on some R&B music, and then I would say, just write. Work with a partner and write. And they will write for about 30, 45 minutes, and then I will have to be the instructor, because they're still teenagers. And that's pretty much how our writing process went. So after the writing process, the graphic designers created a layout. We did the photo shoot. So we had a one-day photo shoot with 18 teenagers, 7 creative professionals. The students developed the set design, so all of the photos that you see in the second magazine, the students designed that. They selected the backdrops. And this day I cried because I was so impressed. My damn heart exploded, because you have these young people, these black girls that are involved in their own production. We did not have a white man behind the camera creating as the second AC or, the director of photography. These girls were behind the lens, in front of the lens, instructing each other on how they would like to be visually captured. And that was so powerful to me, because usually you just have people taking pictures of black girls, but black girls was actually forming their own aesthetic. Just sit with that for a minute. And if you think about the images that you see on television, who is really behind the scenes, who are really controlling the images that we see. And findings, so the photo shoot, was beautiful. Especially if we think about, as I mentioned, like the way the images are controlled. Historically and currently, black girls' beauty and bodies have been sites of spectacle, commodified, okay? We get told what's appropriate. And aesthetics are part of their identity politic. Especially, I want to say currently, because this has historically happened, but I'll just give you just an example. There are a lot of big brands, media brands, fashion brands that are legitimately ripping off black girl style. From Air Force Ones, and now the style is dirty Air Force Ones. And if you wore dirty Air Force One, you will get talked about. And now it's the style. From our ass to the nails to the hair, that comes historically, that is a part of the African diaspora, that is us. Quote me on that, I'm claiming that. And so we have big marketing brands, Nike, Adidas, right? Fashion Nova to an extent, right? I went to an event, Complex Con, where there were, and then I was in Wisconsin Dells, there were white girls getting their hair braided, right? That's who we are, that is who we are. And do you think that these brands are investing into black communities, are investing back into black girls, are putting black girls on the covers of magazines, and not elite black girls who are already celebrities, but your ordinary, everyday black girl who goes to school? So sit with that. And think about why now is black girls' aesthetic being heavily portrayed. But when I'm in spaces with black girls, they have a hard time, and I saw this in the photo shoot. Okay? Girls said that they thought that they were ugly, they cried, they had a hard time believing that they could actually be beautiful. And being in front of the camera was extremely difficult. And here is where I determined that their aesthetics is a part of their identity politic. And although the photo shoot was there to counter through image making and allow girls to craft their own style, it was still very, very complicated space. Okay, so tensions and frustrations reveal how media informs black girls, that you have to look like Beyonce, that you have to, that they didn't feel like they were prepared because they didn't have a certain hairstyle or nails or outfit. And they were late, they took too much time focusing on getting themselves together versus coming out within the production, with the production crew and actually getting their pictures taken. So it was a struggle trying to get them out of the room to see themselves as beautiful. So after sorry, I skipped a part. So after the photo shoot, I loved it, my heart exploded, but I was still grappling with why were the girls having such a hard time with image making. As Nzile Isoke notes in her book, Urban Black Women and the Politics of Resistance, identity politics are constructed narratives and the writing of self into existing dominant histories and structures to address specific issues and extend a specialized analysis of power gleaned from surviving oppressive conditions. And so the girls' identity politics situates their matter-of-fact language, aesthetics, and common epistemologies within a larger cultural discourse and illuminate their intersectionalities. So here, this slide is about their stories. They discussed R. Kelly, they discussed why black girls drop out of school, toxic relationships, why they fight, and colorism. And they wanted to be very clear that their stories are real. And so then I define realness as acts of resistance. And writing is about self. It's difficult because you have to be vulnerable. You're already deemed as wrong, which is why they were countering me and stating, I can't use the I, that's not effective writing. But their writing gives insight on hegemonic ideologies, power structures, and various systems of oppression. And getting the girls to write was pulling teeth, so it wasn't an easy process. My way of getting them to actually write was just being consistent, validating them, putting them in pairs, and just constant editing. So employing MELT as pedagogy is necessary to centralize girls' experiences in the classroom. And working with girls requires emphasis on their personal and creative agency more than programming. Programming creates pressure and frustration to get it done. And sometimes we focus so much on funding that we forget about the participants. And in this process, it takes a lot of time with identity work. So after we wrote the stories, we had the photo shoot, we produced what you see now, the second issue. And since the second issue, we have collaborated with more creative professionals. Someone has presented in Brazil about us. We've had 2 launch events. Our first launch event, we thought it was going to be intimate, and then 200 people showed up. And then for our second launch event, it was about 300 people that showed up. We are currently curating the third issue, which is the photo. It's like I have clips on them. They should be passing around, but it's photos. So we're still in production with the third issue. We've developed a website. We've received 3 community grants. 2 girls have actually majored in journalism. 1 received a scholarship for her article. And one girl was selected from hundreds of applicants to join the National Journalist Organization. And although I struggled with the 501c3 process, we needed it to receive grants and funding. And I struggled because I want MELT to remain organic. I didn't want to commit to grants that didn't understand our process or the intentional language that I wanted to use so that I can make sure that I'm always putting the girls' voices first. But that's a whole nother conversation about the nonprofit industrial complex and all that stuff. Sorry. And my next accomplishment is that I will be published in the Black Girlhood Studies collection, edited by Aria Holiday, and I'm in chapter 6, so read it when it comes out. It comes out in December, and it's entitled Pushing the Limits in Black Girl-Centered Research, Exploring Methodological Possibilities in MELT magazine. I argue that MELT is a pedagogy, but in my process, I realized that MELT is actually a method and a methodology, and some people will say, well, we have methodologies that already exist, just use those, and I'm like, no. Have to be very creative. We created, our own theories, our own frameworks that is specific to MELT, working with girls and producing a magazine. But I talk about that in my chapter. I won't give you that. This is just a photo of the girls in the photography program. And I will take questions. I hope I didn't bore anybody. meltmagazineshy.com. And Shy is C-H-I. Yeah. Meltmagazineshy.com. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Being here, for being you. I also used to work with young women in Chicago. God bless you. 'Cause I did it. I have a question. I was wondering if you could take us through the process of how your media intake has shifted as a result of working with Black girls during this process.
Mm-hmm. Yes, my intake has been, how can I put this? I've been more aware about fashion and aesthetics. I've been going into spaces and saying, wait a minute, my girls wear that. Why do I have that on? Like that's, so I've been looking at the way that fashion has been commodified and how Black girls' aesthetic is like, the brands are, you have these global brands, but I don't see any Black girls. And I'm with the girls like almost every day, and they're like, talking about each other's shoes or talking about their outfits, their desires of how they want to look. And so I think that through my media making process, I would just say I've been more aware of the importance of aesthetics and image making, especially for Black girls and women, and how we can make that look different, make it look diverse. Yeah, did I answer your question? Okay, yes.
I'm an undergrad here, and I go out, and so I see in the social life and nightlife around here, I see a lot of what you talk about in terms of Black girl styles being jocked and being used. And so my question is there a remedy for that, or what's the appropriate response to that from your end?
Is there a remedy to stop jocking Black culture? Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're all in the academy to try to figure that out. I don't know, stop jocking people shit. I don't know. Learn about where, I will say, I will offer this. The remedy is no. The remedy is Black girls having access, being behind the camera and in front of the camera, being in control of their own image making, so that people can know, because sometimes people don't really know, they just think that it's cool, right? But a lot of cool shit just comes from Black people. And I think, being a scholar here, you arrive and just learning about, fashion, style, dance, like having a historical perspective of where certain images come from is a remedy as well. And I think you asked an excellent question. I think that's why we're doing the work that we do. But we just need to give our girls, they need to be in control. So if you're a filmmaker, why not have a Black girl on set? She could start off as like a PA, a production assistant or something. Or if you're a photographer, why not ask her, take pictures, put a camera in her hand. Or if you're a graphic designer, teach her the skills. But that's really the remedy is not. Then hopefully, I don't know, maybe people will stop stealing our shit, I don't know. Yeah.
Hi. Well, I also grew up in Chicago, and I'm wondering what high school did you, you mentioned that you had a high school that had the girls that you all worked with, but what high school was that, and how did you get working? How did you get connected with that school?
Yeah, so this is before research, so I won't get in trouble, okay? I wasn't supposed to be in high school conducting research, so for camera, I was not conducting research at this high school. I partnered with After School Matters in Chicago. Hey. And I went to Phillips High School, but I was not conducting research. I was just meeting with the girls as a homegirl, and we were, just talking, hanging out, and we came up with the idea once I left Phillips High School to start the magazine, and that's when but yeah, so I personally went to King High School, but the high school I started was Phillips High School, and then from After School Matters, I went to another station, which is the Oakwood Community Station, in the Kenwood Oakland area. It's where the old Ida B. Wells project used to be. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, since I'm on my tangent, just really quickly to give you some context. So this photo, here, this was taken at the Stony Island Arts Bank, and Johnson, H. Johnson, this is his old furniture, and this is what his office looked like. So they saved his furnishings and his books. And because the Divine wants to do this work, the name of that exhibit is called the Black Excellence Exhibit. But the teens had already came up with the term Black excellence before we even went to this exhibit. So we kind of grew with time. But I had Maya Iman is a photographer, Black woman photographer. Look her up on Instagram. She's amazing. She, the teens dressed themselves. Ingrid Nelson was a stylist. And they just went to the Stony Island Arts Bank, which is on the south side of Chicago. So if you're ever in Chicago, please go to the Stony Island Arts Bank. It's amazing. And this is Johnson and so we were here. There was Jet magazines on the table. And so that was a really, really proud moment for us.
Now, you said you also worked with kids at Urbana Middle School?
Yes, through
Having
Soul
kids in
Time.
Urbana schools, I'm
Okay.
curious about what kind of similarities and differences you want to see between their experiences and how you work with in Chicago. It's a big question, I know, but.
I don't feel like I see any differences. I don't feel like I saw too much difference. I mean, besides geographic location and maybe access to certain types of fashion, language difference, but in terms of like desire or energy or needs, I don't really feel like there was much difference. I will say, I think because Chicago is more of a metropolitan city, I think that girls have a little bit more freedom, I would say, than what I saw in Urbana and Franklin, a little bit more freedom to identify, like out loud, that I am, a queer Black female, or I'm a nerd and I like anime and cosplay. Now, I did Urbana and Franklin maybe like 2000, a long time ago, like 2007 to maybe like 2012. So, the generations have shifted, media has shifted, so that could have influence, but I do think that being in the city, I think they have a little bit more access sometimes to.
I'm a tennis player, and so growing up, I was really, my idols were like Serena Venus Williams, and so having like a female mentor kind of growing up, I feel like it's something that's very important. Is there a way you promote mentorship or leadership to look up to, powerful female women within them?
I'm not sure I understand your question. So are you saying,
Like, do you have a way for like the girls in your program to like interact with like mentors or people that they look up to?
so I will say I'm anti-mentoring. And I'm anti-mentoring because mentoring is part of programming, and it's this idea that the adult knows it all, and we are the expert over Black girls' lives, and there's this way of mentoring that is a transactional relationship. So I'll just put that out there. But they do work with creative professionals, which are people that graphic designers, but they don't come to the space to mentor the girls. They just come to hang out and teach them a skill, show them, they'll say, oh, you're interested in X. Okay, well, let me show you some techniques, some skills so that you can elevate X or demonstrate it in a way, that you would like. I mean, that's, I guess, would be my similar example of mentoring, but yeah, I promote anti-mentoring.
I'm wondering if you, sorry.
No, you can go with it.
I don't want to take you away from your project, but I wanted to ask you, it's obviously that this is a strong need for this particular, but can you say anything about the rest of Chicago scene and maybe something that stuck out who you collaborate with? Because I'm just curious how the African American community communicates with itself. If that's clear, I don't know. Otherwise, just say some more about your project.
Yeah, I would say more about my project, because I don't know. That's a nuanced question. I'm not historian of Chicago in that sense, in
Yeah.
that context.
Something that stuck out.
Yeah, let me sit on that.
So my question as it relates to, in your process of creating this magazine and working with various groups of Black girls, you mentioned that you had a lot of young girls who weren't confident in their writing, who didn't feel very, confident in front of the camera. So I know that a lot of the focus is on aesthetics, which for me, I think of outward and the external. So some of those issues in which they don't feel quite as confident, and you also address those issues.
Yeah. So the way that I addressed it, I just asked them straight up, why didn't you feel comfortable? But I didn't try to remedy it. You see what I'm saying? And what I mean by remedy is, so I will of course give encouraging statements, but I wouldn't try to go in and like fix her to make her feel so different. I would just say, you are beautiful. Like, I'm very firm, direct, a little aggressive, I guess. But I would just say, you are beautiful, but sometimes we shut people up with affirmations, like, you'll be okay. So I try not to do that, like they're saying, oh, you're just beautiful, girl, don't worry about it, you're just having a bad day. I would say, well, why did you feel that way? What was on your mind? I feel that way sometimes. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it. And I would spend time with it. And then when we had our writing sessions, I would tell them, write about how you felt at the photo shoot. Just write about it. And if you want to discuss it out loud, a lot of it, they blame me for a lot of things, just to be honest. They blame me. They would say, well, you didn't give us enough time. I'm just like, I think and then I start defending myself. But I wanted them to unpack, like, what do you mean I didn't give you enough time? Why did you need your hair to be like this? Why, just, because and as a researcher, that informs my research as well, like the way, Black girls are thinking this way and feeling this way. It's not their fault, like they are informed by these larger images, these larger ideas, and I still deal with it too. So who am I to kind of try to remedy it, which is why I'm anti-mentoring, because I'm going through some of the same, I'm grappling with some of the same ideas as well. Did that answer your question? I had a point and I forgot it.
And then how often are you circling out new girls for
Like, I've started with the same girls, and then they invite their friends, and then they'll graduate off, but then I'll still have their friends. So I don't really recruit. It's just kind of word of mouth. Currently, the girls have graduated or moved on. So for the third issue that hasn't come out yet, right now I'm working with just 2 girls. But I'm still in contact with, my other male girls. But in terms of the actual production, it's 2 girls that I'm working with right now, just because for timing, and we are thinking about doing another sort of project for the 4th issue. So that's just kind of what I'm in the process. But I don't really cycle out. They love me so much, thank God, that they just.
I want to thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
incredible, and I'd like to say this.
I'm not boring now.
No. I wanted to ask, what are your biggest dreams for?
Well, when people ask me about my dreams, I would like, on a grander scale, I would like a girl to just I want to see more girls behind the camera, in front of the camera. I want to see more Black girl media production, because I'm even thinking about changing the name from Melt Mag to Melt Media, just to encompass so many different areas. Create an institute that celebrates the diversity of all Black girls. So you can wear a weave, you can wear a fro, you don't have to have hair, you can come as you are, but you have a space to produce. And so whether that's in an institute, whether that's joining forces with existing Black girl spaces and groups. But yeah, my dream, like my next project, I would like for Melt to be in a museum. And just have like actually got this idea from But just have the experience, like the magazine experience, and more of an exhibit. But that's just an idea. But yeah, my dreams is really to just, melt. I don't want to have 200-300 students, which is what funding pushes though. What is growth? What is growth? You have to grow. You have to grow. And it's just like we are growing sometimes spiritually. Our ideas are growing, right? Our love for self is growing. They don't measure that. They just measurable, right? But like, I want people to fund Melt because they see that we do dope work, not that. Like, I don't really like working. Like, 33 was a lot. A photo shoot with 33 students in 8 hours was like, I don't even know how I put that off. So I don't see Melt growing past 33. I just see kind of maybe the cycle, maybe a new group. Yes.
And then if you don't mind me asking, what do you define as black girl? Because you have those who identify black, and I think Rachel knows y'all, but who don't have any connection to you now.
So what do you mean by no connection? Because that's how we define black girls and connections and so like
Well,
African.
like I was saying, just like Rachel knows y'all, she's not a black girl, but
But she identifies. A lot of white girls identify with black. But that's a historical bloodline connection to the African dynasty. Okay, and that doesn't mean that you have to know how to footwork or do the electric slide or, just, I don't know, eat greens for things. You see what I'm saying?
They sometimes even struggle with who I identify.
Yeah.
Who I identify, like, because I'm somewhere in the middle.
I think that's a personal experience, though. And so in my work, I would just define blackness as connecting, young black and female, so connecting to the African diaspora in some way, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to identify with various like with culture, because then you have race and then you have culture, right? So I think my education is serving me well. So I think that racially, yes. But, racially, like, yes, black girls in terms of race. But then culture, I think black girls bring different types of culture to Melt, right? Because, blackness means, the culture of blackness is different in different geographic locations. But I want all that in Melt, right? Like, I want to bring different cultures of blackness. And does that answer your question? I hope nobody take issue with that.
I'm curious, it seems like so much was gained from the process of creating Melt, and what has become of some of the products that you've created, and what feedback and how has that been distributed?
Yeah, so, I listed before, so we, community grants, launch events. The feedback has been great. People love Melt. What was the second part of your question? How have you distributed it? Like, is there membership that people, or like people in other parts of the country, or? Well, right now we are in the Silver Room in Hyde Park in Chicago. There's magazines there, but in terms of distribution, I haven't figured that part out yet. Any other questions? Yes.
What was your parent involvement or like parent engagement from the girls? I work at a school and that's one of the hardest parts. Between the Latino community and the Black community, just getting parents involved can be pretty difficult.
Yeah, there were no parents involved. I kind of like.
No, I mean, especially at that age, that's great, but at the elementary level and more in an academic setting.
I had two parents to try to seek out funding for us in terms of active involvement. They would just participate in the launch event or acting the magazine incited conversations that needed to be held between the girls and their mothers and fathers, because they wrote about this and their parents didn't know that the parents were reading, and, you know, I think it was a renewed appreciation. You know, it helped to start a conversation that girls were struggling to have.
Would you ever want to create something like that with like a crowd? Elementary?
No. I don't have the patience, but if someone wants to partner with No, and, you know, I'm open to that if they have the patience to do so. I don't have the patience. Well, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for all of the excellent questions and listening to me. So you can find us on Melt Magazine, meltmagazineshy.com. And then I can give you my email address. I live in Chicago if you want to hang out, if you want to do some melt stuff. And then you also have Soul Hot here, so make sure you know you're in tune with Black Girl Jeans Week and what's going on with Soul Hot. It's Black girls here in Champaign too. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to me. I was a little nervous, but thank you.